Welcome to the Global Dialogues on Preparation of FCPF Readiness Proposals. My name is D.G. Chandrasekaran. I'm a natural resource economist with the World Bank, and joining me is Kenan Rapp, a social development specialist with the Latin American Caribbean region of the World Bank. Today we'll be presenting a brief presentation to you on strategic environmental and social assessments in RED readiness and its relationship to the World Bank safeguard policies. This is a two-part proposal where I will walk you through sort of what is an SESA and what are some of the reasons for doing it. And Ken will walk you through how it ties in with World Bank safeguard policies and its use for developing environmental and social management frameworks. Well, as part of the RED preparation process and development of RED strategies, it is important to integrate social and environmental considerations into the strategies, as those are central for sustainability and vital for performance of the economy and social well-being. A strategic environmental and social assessment offers a range of analytical and participatory approaches that aim to integrate environmental and social considerations into policies, plans, and programs, and can be used to evaluate the interlinkages with economic and institutional considerations. Now, there are several reasons for conducting an SESA, but two that are key for the RED readiness process is that an SESA allows for incorporation of environmental and social considerations into the development of the RED readiness strategy at two levels. The first is at the strategic level, and at the strategic level through the assessment of legal, policy, and regulatory and institutional context, as well as an assessment of the institutional capacity gaps. It's possible through an SESA to identify how to best address key environmental, social, and governance issues associated with the causes of deforestation and forest degradation. At another level, at the more activity and project level, the SESA can add value by helping develop an environmental and social management framework through which you can assess the environmental and social risks of specific actions and projects within the RED strategy to reduce deforestation, and through this link the SESA with the bank's safeguard policies. What I'd like to do with this slide is share with you a little bit of how the SESA fits within the overall FCPF business phases. As you know, there are three phases. Phase one is the RPP formulation. Phase two is the actual preparing for readiness, and phase three is the implementation. And within these phases, there are 2 points at which governments make submissions to the participants committee and are actually assessed. Now, in phase one of the things that's done as the RPP is developed is that the World Bank, working in partnership with the government, will determine what are some of the applicable World Bank policies, looking at what is there in terms of national laws and policies and practice, and what might be some of the gap filling that's needed to meet World Bank safeguard standards. Also, during this phase, building on a lot of the work that is done to develop the RPP, the government is responsible for developing an SESA terms of reference, which would contain the concrete set of actions and activities that will be done to implement the SESA. Now, one of the things that's central to carrying out an SESA is doing an analysis of environmental and social contexts. And this will allow for the identification of key environmental and social issues, and also to examine what are the institutional and capacity gaps for addressing these key social and environmental issues from a policy and legal standpoint, as well as from an institutional capacity standpoint. And this is something that the government would do with World Bank assistance, and this would help us understand what are environmental and social opportunities and risks. As part of this, it would be important to carry out stakeholder analyses, including indigenous peoples and affected groups, and really review in a concerted and systematic fashion policies and institutions. Another part of the SESA are the consultations and participation that would be carried out. These consultations and participation are done in parallel, or rather in coordination with the consultation and participation plan that is developed at the early stages of the RPP formulation. And again, this is something that the government with World Bank assistance would carry out, and it would help understand what are the impacts, potential impacts of a possible RED activities on different stakeholder groups, and it would also involve a further and thorough stakeholder analysis. It would also involve sharing information and carrying out consultations that are based on prior meaningful information and are done in appropriate fora with disclosure, feedback, and transparency. Now, in carrying out the SESA, which builds, as I was saying, on activities that need to be done as part of the RPP, but also in preparing for readiness, what will be developed are environmental and social management frameworks. And this is, again, something that will be based on principles and analyses and consultation, the two elements we were talking about before. And it will present frameworks that are consistent with the World Bank safeguards and form the basis for future location-specific plans. The other output of the SESA, which would inform the overall implementation of RED activities, would be the reforms and needed institutional strengthening to be sure that the key social and environmental considerations are addressed in avoiding deforestation and forest degradation. This, too, would be something that the government would carry out with World Bank assistance, and it would be a review of policy. It would be based on a review of policies and regulatory frameworks, and looking at what are concrete and needed institutional strengthening and improved coordination, as well as optimal ways for continuing citizen engagement. So, in summary, from a strategic standpoint, an SESA would involve a political economy analysis to better understand the power dynamics that influence the policy or strategy formulation, as well as the political economy factors that influence how environmental and social priorities are actually addressed. In identifying the key social and environmental issues relevant for reducing emissions from deforestation and degradation, it's central to use participatory approaches, rigorous analytical approaches, and carry out a prioritization exercise so that we can really focus on the key issues and considerations. In terms of assessing existing capacities and systems to address these issues, this is done through having a better understanding of what are the policy, legal, and regulatory and institutional frameworks in place, what is the existing capacity, and what are the gaps in these areas. This allows us to really understand and make recommendations on how these key issues can be best addressed, what are some opportunities, and what might be some threats and concerns, and then formulate policies or institutional, legal, and regulatory adjustments that might be needed, as well as capacity building measures that might be needed to most effectively address the key and social and environmental considerations.